My name's Alan, and on behalf of my co-host Estancia, the crew, and the staff of KCTV, I'd like to welcome you to a very exciting and interesting show of Bridging Heaven and Earth. Tonight we have some really special and exciting guests. We have the disciples, the companions, the students of Carlos Castaneda, and it should be a really exciting show. We have some live movements, tensegrity movements. We have some discussions with them about the warrior's way, about what it is to be a sorcerer, a sorceress. And we're really excited about the show tonight, and we have so much packed into the show that we'd like to really move it along. And so I'd like to introduce my co-host Estancia, and she is going to begin with an invocation and lead us in a meditation.
Hello. And so maybe we can begin by surrounding ourselves with light and putting our awareness on our heart as we call forth the energy and the love and the beauty of the angels and the masters, and we call forth to our own I Am presence, that nucleus of our being that contains all wisdom and all the love of the masters, as we ask that our body receive the light and that our cells within our bodies open up and let go of old programs and just relax and be transformed. So maybe we can all just breathe in the light, close our eyes for a moment, put our awareness on our heart, and just go into the silence within together. There. And I'd like to begin by just saying that I'm really excited about our guests. We had some time today and we got together and we shared a lot, and I feel a great opening of my heart, great sharing with them. We're going to show a little clip, and this clip is an introductory clip about tensegrity. And tensegrity are sacred movements from ancient Mexico, and they were handed down from Don Juan and to Carlos Castaneda and those disciples, and then handed down from Carlos to his disciples who are our guests. And they expand awareness, gather energy, and our guests are impeccable. We talked about that, and it's just a very, very powerful night. So when this clip comes by and you see it, please read the scroll, and you will understand the show a lot better if you really stay with it and read it. So here it comes. Watch it and read.
Men and women who lived in Mexico in ancient times, whose expertise was to deal with awareness, believed that human beings are the beholders of a most peculiar dualism. They were not referring to traditional dualism such as body and mind or matter and spirit, but to the dualism between the self and something they called the energy body. They consider the self to be a holistic unit which includes both, body and mind, matter and spirit together, and they define the energy body as a particular conglomerate of energy fields belonging to each of us individually that has the capability of being transformed into a perfect replica of the self, and vice versa. They believed that the self has the capability of being transformed into a perfect replica of the energy body, that is to say, a conglomerate of sheer energy fields. Those men and women of ancient Mexico invented and developed a series of movements which helped them to store enough spare energy to accomplish this dual transformation. They handled and transmitted this knowledge from generation to generation up to the present. The movements you are about to see were called the 12 basic passes to gather energy. They are part of a vast series of movements which were taught to us, the last links of a long chain of such men and women. They were taught especially to Carlos Castaneda by his immediate teacher Don Juan Matus and by another practitioner named Lujan. Carlos Castaneda calls it tensegrity, a term he borrowed from architecture. Tensegrity is the property of skeleton structures that employ continuous tension members and discontinuous compression members in such a way that each member operates with the maximum efficiency and economy. We consider this term most appropriate because this system of movements is the quintessence of tensing and relaxing the muscles and tendons of the body. The persons who are going to execute the 12 basic passes to gather energy are Kylie Lundal, Nai Murez, and Reni Murez. The three of them belong to a class of beings that those people of ancient Mexico called Chackmools, or the fierce guardians of energy sites. It has been stated and proven to us that this set is the basis for acquiring enough energy to enter into a particular state of well-being that can give definition to the energy body. To give definition to the energy body is the first step towards enlarging the parameters of perception. For those men and women of ancient Mexico, experts in dealing with awareness, to enlarge the parameters of perception meant entering into bona fide, all-inclusive new worlds. All-inclusive meant to them that those perceived new worlds were not mere concatenations of the mind, but worlds in which one can live and die. For them, entering into new worlds was the core of their magical expertise. Magic is a most inadequate term in this case, for it is loaded with insurmountable negative connotations. Those practitioners bypassed this negative slant by maintaining that their magic was merely a maneuver of perception. We have found out from our own experience that it is indeed a maneuver of perception, but a maneuver of such a magnitude that only the most daring and level-headed men and women can accomplish it.
Well, greetings again, and it is my honor to introduce the Chackmools. Here they are.
Good evening, Alan.
Hi.
Good evening, Estancia. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Good evening.
I am Kylie Lundal. This is Nai Murez, and this is Reni Murez.
Hello.
We're very
Hi.
happy to
Good
be
evening.
here. Thank you. We are here tonight on your show because we would like to present you with a sample of movements that we practice. Before we do the demonstration of these movements, we would all three of us like, first of all, to tell you a little bit about who we are and how we came to practice these movements. 25 years ago, an anthropologist by the name of Carlos Castaneda wrote and published a book entitled The Teachings of Don Juan, a Yaqui Way of Knowledge. In that book, he described his experiences as an apprentice of a Mexican Indian sorcerer by the name of Juan Matus. Over the years, Carlos published 8 other books. These books dealt with different topics about his experiences as an apprenticeship with Don Juan. And because of that, his name and the name of his teacher, Don Juan Matus, became known worldwide. With that, all of Castaneda's books were translated into 17 different languages. For these last 25 years that we've been discussing here, Castaneda has refused the spotlight. He refused the spotlight under the premise that this anonymity that he would keep would allow him to continue his work without any social impediments. And he himself stated that Don Juan did succeed in convincing him of the validity and the seriousness of sorcerer's propositions. Don Juan Matus transmitted to Castaneda some knowledge. This knowledge was about perception. It was about the nature of perception. And he also transmitted to Castaneda information and knowledge about the key role that energy plays in perceiving and interpreting the world around us. Now, this knowledge was not an invention. This knowledge was the distilled accumulation of a millenary knowledge, the result of lifetime experiences of generations of sorcerers. There are 3 other disciples of Don Juan Matus's. That's Florinda Donner Grau, Taisha Abelar, and Carol Teagues. The 4 disciples of Don Juan Matus are the last remnants of an entire lineage of sorcerers. The 3 of us here tonight are the recipients of the knowledge that Don Juan imparted to those 4.
Good evening. I am Nai Morez. And the question has been asked from time to time, how did you come to be the recipients of this knowledge? And the story is not a linear one, but it begins, you could say, with when one of the 4 disciples of Don Juan Matus, Carol Teagues, became so involved in a particular aspect of the sorcerer's world that she was separated from her fellow disciples for a period of over 10 years. And upon finishing her task, she returned to them. And this return was a very dramatic event for them. Carlos Castaneda gave a lecture at a bookstore in Santa Monica, and Carol Teagues attended that lecture. She found out about the lecture completely by chance, and she had almost given up on finding Castaneda after her return. And so naturally, Carlos Castaneda, he was very difficult to find, and she thought it would be impossible because he was very careful to maintain his inaccessibility. And when he saw her at this lecture, naturally, it was not something that he expected. As far as he knew, Carol Teagues had left for the duration of his life. And so, according to him, the shock that he felt upon seeing her was indescribable. And the force of this event was so extraordinary for the sorcerers, the students of Don Juan, that it influenced them to do something that they call opening the doors of the sorcerer's world that had been before that closed. So, one consequence of this reappearance of Carol Teagues was our appearance, the 3 of us. And you could even say that Carol Teagues herself brought Rennie Merez, because Rennie also attended that same lecture and was sitting next to Carol Teagues. Kylie Lundahl came almost at the same time, and then I, Nai, came a little later. The sorcerers, when the 3 of us were together, it dawned on them that we were the guardian unit. That was a structural part of their tradition. And they call us Chackmools, which is a term that Don Juan used to make a link or a simile between the guardians, this guardian unit, and some stone figures that are found at the pyramids of Tula and Yucatan in Mexico. And the scholars often say that these figures are incense burners. Don Juan told his disciples that these figures were guardians of the pyramids as sites of power. The word Chackmool itself comes from a Mayan town of that name, but it's a name that is only used, the application of this name is particular to this generation of sorcerers. The original name for the guardians were the guardian warriors.
And good evening.
Hi again.
My name is Renata Merez, and our movements are called tensegrity, which is a term borrowed from architecture, which refers to the internal balance attained through the compression and decompression, relaxation and tension of skeletal structures. We find this term most appropriate for our movements because basically a similar internal balance is attained in the human form through the relaxation and tension of muscles and tendons. Tensegrity is based on one of the cornerstones of the sorcerer's world, and this is basically what they call the magical passes. Don Juan Matus told his four disciples that the magical passes were not invented, but rather they were discovered. He also told his disciples that when the sorcerers went into dreaming, they could see that within the human form there was a special sort of mysterious binding force that held all the conglomerate of energy fibers together. Astronomers have said that there is a similar binding force that holds the universe together. And without this force, the universe would dissipate. Don Juan Matus says that this also would happen to the human form without this binding force. The sorcerers of ancient Mexico found this binding force extremely important to them, and they found that by doing certain movements, they could call their attention at will to this binding force. Oh, okay, to this binding force. This became very important to them because because basically, if they could call their attention to this binding force, they could change, alter, and do whatever they wanted with their beings. The three of us here have worked with Carlos Castaneda and his disciples for about 7 years, and for about 7 years, and we have basically attempted to, not transform, but take tensegrity out of the realms of the ancient sorcerers. The ancient sorcerers, when they used tensegrity, it was shrouded in darkness, secrecy,
let's show one of the movements on tape,
Surely.
and then we'll come back and talk a little more about it. So this is called the access breath, and it's a very powerful movement, and we'd like you to see it now, and then we could describe it later with the Chackmools here. And it should be very powerful, so just pay attention.
The access breath.
The access breath.
This energy pass is of utmost importance because it moves the earthly terminal of the invisible axis of the energy that surrounds the body from its site on the ground and then projects it out into infinity. It acts on the earthly terminal so that the energy is floating rather than grounded. It is a belief that a vertical axis of energy goes to the ground through a point just behind the genitals.
Welcome back. I want to immediately go into a question that I've been wanting to hear the answer to, and that is that I understand that Carlos has mentioned that there is very little time for us left. Kylie, can you tell me what that means, what he's referring to your understanding?
Yes, that question has actually two aspects to it. The one of the aspects is that there very little time for mankind in general. The other aspect is there very little time for sorcerers. We sort of have to keep ourselves in check, because what we want to do is answer the first one very, very quickly. And I think that easily...
Most people want to hear the answer to the first question.
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay,
the first one...
Don't forget that.
I won't. I won't. The first one, the first aspect, we have heard that sorcerer's opinion is that there is very little time left for mankind. But, on the other hand, that opinion, that mood, that idea has been in vogue for many, many, many years. Maybe even before we even knew. And the world is still going strong.
When you say little time, do you mean the time of what is now, and then there will be a beginning of it? I mean, that's
what I'm saying. We don't know.
No.
People have been saying that for millennia. It's been going on, for a very long time. But everything seems to still be going. So nobody really knows. How can we know?
Right.
The other aspect is there very little time left for sorcerers? Yes. There's very, very little time left.
Why?
It's a minute to midnight. Because basically, Carlos Castaneda and the other three disciples have fulfilled their task. They've completed it. They were all given the task a very long time ago to become empty, to become void of all of the concerns of the world, all of the concerns about me, the neediness of the me, the I, to be fulfilled, the desires, the wants, the ideas about the self, the ideals that we have to spend all of our energy on maintaining throughout the day. Those are all gone. What we are facing right now is that they are now confronted with a new task, sorcerer's task. And Rennie will comment on that.
Basically, as we see it, their new task is to leave this dimension or this plane of the face of the earth with their total awareness, with their total life force. On one level, I guess you could interpret it as it's their time to die, but it's not death as we know it. They're not going to be buried in the ground. Their bodies will not decompose. Instead, like Kylie has said, through all their 30 years of discipline, and as their level of awareness has raised to the fullest to fulfill their luminous egg, their bodies will burn from the fire within, adding to their awareness, and they will leave. They will leave this dimension.
They'll transform their bodies into sheer awareness. So it's something that enters into what sorcerers call the inconceivable, because it's not something that we have terms for or something that we can understand.
And we will do everything within our power to grab a hold in that last second.
Run after them.
And then go
with them.
So you don't have a feeling about like trying to bring the earth with you, and that's just someone else's job, and that's the job of others? Because there are many of us who are working with what we call ascension, and that is lifting humankind as well and ourselves into a higher dimension.
Well, I can't comment on that because I'm not a practitioner of what it is that you've said, but I can comment on what we practice. And I know that Carlos Castaneda has said that the world is fine. The world will take care of itself if human beings could just have a revolution for themselves. The revolution for the world.
The earth also.
Yeah, the earth is pretty much is what I'm talking about. I don't know.
You experience the earth as a conscious being, then.
Oh,
don't you?
definitely.
Right. So we agree on that language.
Yes.
So at least we're
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying that the earth will survive
She will.
the humans.
Yeah, the earth will have a revolution of its own.
So the reason you're bringing these movements out into the open and Carlos is coming out of the closet, as they say, in a spiritual sense, is to bring the availability of this energy enhancer, this energy body enhancer, tensegrity, and his teachings to more and more people.
Yes.
That Carol Teague's return opened the door.
Just that blasted open something.
Yeah.
It opened the door, but they have always been compelled to bring this opportunity to people.
And that is what the books were written for, to
Yes.
share the experiences.
They held that
Right.
intent.
It's and the tensegrity is the first step. That's being
There are more plans to make it more available, make more tools available in a sense, as tensegrity movements are a tool for
Well, in a way,
consciousness or perception growth.
well, plans are difficult to talk about, but we don't have plans. Whatever is in front of us, we act on impeccably, and this is what's in front of us right now. And so we do it to the best of our ability.
But is there an intention, say, to use a word for a second tape or a third tape? Or
Well, Carlos says that there's 28 volumes.
that's an intention, right?
Busy.
That's almost a plan in words, in human words, right?
It's
Right.
an intent, or it's a conglomeration of things that became known to him.
Right.
And so he said, this is what's there. Whether or not we will have the energy to do it, I don't know. We will all see.
But one tape is out, and that's the first one of what he sees as
Yes.
28 tapes.
Yes.
Yes, and
Of
the second
movements.
one is in, it's
We
almost
have the
done.
movements for the second
Right.
one.
And you're going to demonstrate some of the movements that aren't on the first tape a little later on.
Yes.
Yes.
Live, right at studio.
That's
Live.
Whoa.
The second tape, the first one was called 12 Basic Movements to Gather Energy and Promote Well-Being, and we have the name for the second tape. It's 12 preparatory movements for utilizing hidden bodily energy. So,
And do you do all 28 12s in a day?
Like each of you in your life, do you?
I mean, do you like,
do
some people
these?
do yoga and they do 12 exercises. I mean, do you 28 times 12 every day?
Oh, there's more than that. There's millions.
You don't do
upon
millions every day, don't kid me.
we do as much as we possibly can.
Well, and you know, that brings up
And
the
is there
whole
a certain
idea.
order?
Well, they're delivered in a certain order to the public at large, because that does carry a specific intent, just as a book carries a specific intent. What Carlos Castaneda does not want is, he's not a guru, and he doesn't want to be, and he doesn't want followers. He wants peers. He wants people who will truly practice the tensegrity until they reach the point to where they are energy interacting with energy, and then they will know the order of things. They will know how to act. And so that's the important thing. But yes, in the beginning it's important to follow the order, because it is set up in a specific intent.
So how long would it take an ordinary person, or a person that's on the spiritual path and interested, to become adept at these? Are these movements easy or difficult? How long did they take you to actually
I
learn?
think they're very difficult.
They're very difficult. They
Yes.
seem like they're very, very concentrated, extremely.
They're
But
very
the-
intense.
You can't be thinking.
No.
When I
And you
watch
can't
it,
watch television when you do it. I
The
noticed that.
movements elicit that. The movements themselves elicit the silence. You don't have to think of having to achieve some great state of silence before you embark on your first tensegrity movement, because that first tape is designed to be accessible exactly to someone who wants to begin this. And the movements, they're complete passes in themselves, right there, that you can do and start working with immediately. So it's not, we don't want to think, even though sometimes it's difficult to get the precision of certain movements, we don't want to think in hierarchies of, now I'm an adept. There's
A
no
green
such
belt
thing.
and a black belt.
Yeah, exactly. That's not,
Right.
that's the antithesis of what we're doing.
Can you just quickly, because we're going to show another clip really soon, but can you quickly just give us a visual, give us an image of what it was like when you first met Carlos? What was that like? Did you know that you would be working with this person? And
No,
As soon as you,
no, we didn't know that. No, I don't think any of us.
No, and I think one of the first steps, as you said, for all of us was tensegrity.
Okay,
Yes.
looks like we're ready for our second clip.
It's in a little while, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Number 12 is a major movement, the antenna. Another extremely mysterious pass that has to do with a level of awareness prior to man's. The men and women of ancient Mexico maintained that there is an enormity of energy in the universe coming from silent and invisible sources, dead stars. This pass allows one to utilize it. Of all the many passes that are known, this one has been selected because it is believed that with it, one can gather energy that is outside the realm of common sense in the world of everyday life. In this pass, the hands act as antennae, pulling and reaching for that energy.
So here we have the Chackmools doing a live demonstration. There you go.
The first movement is from the very first video that's already done. We will begin with the ball of energy.
Okay, that's the complete pass. Now I'm going to show with Rennie just a little bit about it. When she first gets into position, the hands need to be perpendicular. Then she rotates the hands so that she's now holding a ball of energy here. Now she'll flip it 5 times. She takes the claws and pulls it apart, rips the energy ball apart, applies it to the chest, the lung area, 3 times. Back into the beginning position. She flips the hands over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now take the claws and rip it apart. Apply it to the liver and pancreas. 3 times. Back to the beginning position. Shift the hands. Flip it. Rip it apart. Bring the hands down to the genital area. 3 times again. And that's the completion of a major pass from the first video. What this does is there's dispersed energy around us, and it pulls the energy into a concrete ball. Okay, there's another one that we're going to do from the first video.
And this one is called Reaching the Energy Holes Above the Head. To go over this in a little finer detail, we'll demonstrate it with Kylie. Basically, you make 3 small curls at the hip area inwardly with your hands. Then you make 5 inward spirals up. At this point, you grab energy because there are secret caches of energy above your head. You grab that energy and you pull it down with a great deal of force. This is abstract energy, and you spiral inwardly 5 times. You place your hands on your hip thigh area because this is where the transfer of energy takes place. The abstract energy which you got from above is being transferred into the body. Your personal history is being transferred into your hands. Now you shoot your personal history up into infinity to get it out of the body. And then you bring your hands down and you break your gaze. You do this again, but with outward movements. You make 3 outward spirals down at the hip area, 5 bigger outward spirals up. You grab energy again. You bring it down with force by spiraling outwardly 5 times. Transfer the energy and shoot up your personal history. And break your gaze. Now we're going to move on to some of the movements that will be on the second new video.
Okay, the first movement that we'll show you from the second video is called the Pyramid of Energy for the Head. demonstrate with Rennie some of what we're doing with this movement. First, you're going to circle the arms inward and then back out as you inhale. Then bring the hands to the waist with the thumb extended and exhale. Then again, a second time, inhale, hands at the waist, exhale, and then a third time, inhale, exhale, and then a fourth circle, and this time you keep the thumbs next to the fingers, put it at the liver pancreas area here just below the ribs, and you don't exhale. And you begin to exhale as you trace the pyramid. This is the back, another side of the pyramid, and then she traces the base, up, around the front, and the base, and then she comes back up to the tip, and now she's going to trace out the sides of the pyramid, up, down, and she stops, and now she's going to take the base of the pyramid, push it out, and as she inhales, bring it up over her head, and she's going to inhale, exhale, and then inhale and exhale 3 times as she collapses the pyramid. It collapses here and goes into the body.
Okay. The second new movement is called the Little House of Energy. Okay. Okay. Kylie, you want to show us that one? Okay. You bring your arms around and you bring them up with a stopping action of force. This makes the basement. You bring them up again. This makes the ceiling. You turn your hands over and slice. That makes the roof. Bring the hands down. That makes the walls. One more slicing action. That makes the floor. Just do it all over. Okay.
The third one is called the sorcerer's breath. Okay, with Nai, the first position of the hand, the fingers are held in close to the palm, the index fingers held very tight and straight. Pull the thumb into the hand and make sure that the palm is very flat and tight. You start with the right hand. The hand with the index finger straight goes vertically over and back as you have a shallow breath and turn the head to the right. Now the left hand goes in a horizontal line around the body. Now I'm going to just turn around for a second so you can see how the hands join in the back. The one with the index hand goes first and they join at the wrist. You can turn back. You pause for a moment at this point and then you slowly inhale as you lean
down, bending at the waist and the legs, pulling the hands and the arms as high up on the back as you can. Now you slowly exhale as the fisted hand comes around horizontally to the front. Continue the exhale as the index-fingered hand comes around to the front in a vertical fashion. Now you pause for a moment and inhale as you slowly stand up and roll the arms up. Straight up over the head. Stretch the torso very, very far. Now exhale as the hands slowly come down. Pause for a moment. Now inhale as you circle around. And exhale as you circle in the opposite direction. Now inhale as you push the hands out 1.5 times. Exhale for the last 1.5 times. Now you repeat on the left side. Vertically back, fisted hand horizontally back. Exhale as you look at the horizon, stopping at the center. Now inhale as you lower yourself and raise the arms up over your back. Pause for a moment. Exhale as the fisted hand comes around horizontally to the front. Continue to exhale as you bring the other hand vertically back. Pause. Now inhale as the hands roll up the body. Stretch the torso. Now exhale as you bring the hands down. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. That's it. That's it for now. Shall we come back? Yes. Thank you.
How do you feel after doing that? Can you put it into words?
Well, hopefully you feel unfamiliar to yourself. That's the whole, that's the focus, that's what we're after with tensegrity, is inner silence, and that it pushes you to an energetic point where you are truly unfamiliar with yourself. So that as you move through the day and you act from the position of freedom, not from the position of something that was ideas about yourself, belief systems and things like that that you did not ask for.
Do you have increased energy to the point where you actually find yourself sleeping less with all of this, or how does that work?
Sleeping less might be a product of the fact that in the sorcerer's world, you work your tail off.
But
yes,
So you don't have time to sleep?
we do, and we always want to take care of our health. So I'm joking with you, but yes, we do. It does help you. Sometimes it will affect your sleeping patterns, things that you eat. Things are shifting. So,
do you have a special diet that all of you follow for energy?
None of us can eat sugars. Sugars are very, very difficult because as children, they're used for so many things and they're really forced on the body. Comes to an adulthood and the pancreas has a very difficult time assimilating sugars.
Right.
And so it can make people very neurotic, which is not what we need. We're after sobriety and impeccability, and it takes an extreme amount of energy, everything that you have, every last ounce that you have in order to do that. And that's what we're after, and that's what's exciting.
Wow, interesting.
And I think also getting back to the sleep for a moment, it comes in waves, and there are certain movements and passes that we do that really, really pull on us in ways that are indescribable, ways that we can't explain, and so it can make us very, very tired. But it's for a moment. And again, you know, with the recapitulation, you find out a lot of amazing things about yourself in that way, that a lot of people have a huge value system on if they need a lot of sleep, that there's something wrong with them. We have a value system. So I think that it just depends on what it is that we're doing. Sometimes it makes you just want to sleep for a very long time, and sometimes you don't want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I can relate to that also.
Yeah.
Some of the other benefits, though, are like increased focus, able to concentrate. Some people find that they can do very complex mathematical problems or understand things that they weren't able to understand before. So
So it
has
brings
effects
clarity
like that.
to the mind.
A lot of
too.
clarity, yeah. Well, those moments of silence that accrue while you're doing tensegrity bring emptiness. So, you know, they're not
So the
your own
creative
patterns
force
again.
has no blockages against it, so
Right.
it just comes out,
Whether
whatever
it
comes
comes
out,
from- yeah.
wherever it comes.
Whatever comes in, really.
Right.
Are there any children that have learned any of these movements?
Yeah, we see a lot of people in the workshops and things like that have taught their children, and it's fabulous for children.
Seems like they would pick it up pretty.
Very much, because they're naturals at it. They already know, you know, their assemblage points are shifting. They're more in tune with it than what we are.
And they don't have 30 years of socialization
Right.
on
Yeah.
top of
Right,
them.
to break through.
Yes, yes.
So do you find that there's a tremendous desire for people to learn the movements, and the workshops are, you know, very well attended, and people seem really interested and serious? And
Yes, very much.
We've had great enthusiasm.
I think
Sold out.
sold out concerts.
Standing room
Well,
only.
yeah. We've had
it really holds the hope of the sorcerer that there is a desperation in the human spirit that knows that as sentient beings who are going to die, that we have lost that awareness. We've lost that heritage, in a sense, and that we are not aware that we are beings who are going to die. Otherwise, we would not act in the way that we do.
Well, I'd like to, thank you all for
Yeah,
coming.
thank
It's
you.
really
Thank you very
exciting
much for
day
having
us.
us. Very
It's
interesting.
really
Thank you.
exciting
It's
and
wonderful
interesting.
being here. Thank you.
And I'd like to tell you about next week's show, where we have a poet and a singer, which also should be a beautiful and exciting show. And if you have any questions about the tapes, the tensegrity tapes, or the workshops that the Chackmools are doing.
When is the workshop?
August 1st.
In LA?
August 1st in Los
August 1st
Angeles,
in Los
to the
Angeles, 3
21st.
weeks.
There was an ad in the Independent I thought I saw about it, which advertised the show. That was
Yes.
one of the reasons I saw it.
Yes, it
It
was-
caught
it was a
my
beautiful
attention.
ad, yeah.
It was a nice ad.
It's very good.
So, it should be exciting. So if you have any questions about it, please call the number. It would be my number, and it would be 687-2053. And you'll also see it scroll at the end of the show. So, please call anytime, and any information about the workshops or about the tape, I'll be happy to pass along. Also, we're all interested in next week's show. We have Crystal Rivers and Marilyn, singers and poets. So that should be a really exciting show. So please tune in. And if you didn't catch all the movements today, they'll be on again Saturday afternoon. This is live on Thursday night, but it'll be on Saturday afternoon at 12:30 in the afternoon, which is Saturday afternoon, generally speaking, is the afternoon. And so that should be exciting, and we hope to see you next week. So thanks and good night, and maybe I'll do a little prayer for the end, and then hope to see you next week.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.